get yourself a cup of tea if you want. I'm going to pour some tea here for us. And then we're just going to start reading Peace, Discovering Life's Harmony Through Relationships. There it is. And have a little discussion. And then you can also put your comments down there, and we'll read your comments as they pop up. So I did not post this. Nobody really knows that I'm doing this. So this is kind of a start to get into this book. I'm first going to show you, in the cover, if you see the turtle, that was just an inspiration that came to me. But later I was told that the turtle represents the grandmother's spirit, and it's also what the Native Americans call America, is Turtle Island. Yeah, I didn't know that when I did this. So I'm going to skip over the preface. You can read that if you want. You might have read some of that. And then I might start with the first poem here called The One. And it says, the one, take care of the one first. Inner peace is the beginning. Make peace between body and soul. Nourish both. Allow healing in both when accidents happen and wounds are inflicted. Create a routine that cares for both daily. Feed the soul first with scripture, prayer, and meditation. Then feed the body with fresh raw food and protein like an almond butter toast with berries. So, yeah, we can discuss that if you want.
Yeah, that's a very good thing to really both nourish your soul and your body.
Yeah. And I feel for me, it's so much about what I am or what I do is try to create healthy habits. Because I believe if you do the small things in a healthy way, then it just builds a healthy life, fulfilling life.
And it builds somehow how you think about yourself and life as well.
Yeah.
Your thoughts comes out of that as well.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah.
If you're kind to yourself, then somehow the thoughts that you have, I believe, is more kindness.
Yeah. Yeah. How you treat yourself is how you ultimately treat others, right?
Somehow.
And that's kind of a very good beginning to this whole thing about relationships, because I think I said something in the preface about how I believe relationships is how everything is built. So how you relate is what creates the manifestation of whether you're building a thing or a family or a
Yes, somehow we always mirror each other.
Yeah. And you've built a beautiful family with your 2 daughters.
Yes, and I guess you too, but I haven't met your family.
No, not yet. Yeah. But that you have a very good example of how both you and your husband work together harmoniously for the children, thinking of giving them their freedom to really become the people they are, right?
There we really are alike, yes.
Yeah. And that created these wonderful independent women. It's great. So we'll go on to the beginning, the first chapter, and
sorry.
Yeah. I guess I'll read, or do you want to read it? The first doesn't matter.
I can try to read.
Okay, you read it.
The beginning. Peace is the second book in a trilogy. The first volume is Being. The third manuscript is Full. Together, three are being peaceful. We know so much about wisdom, yet many of us are in a process. Some call it a journey toward becoming full of peace. If enough people become interested, those individuals who make efforts to be full of peace can gather into community of peacefulness.
I want to just interrupt here.
Mm-hmm.
The being peace and full, that's why I call the community on Patreon Being Peaceful. And I did the nationwide tour of the United States in November, last November, December, called Being Peaceful Tour.
I didn't know.
Yeah, I know. I have a lot in my mind that I don't always speak, so I just thought I need to start speaking more, start sharing more, because I don't think people know what I've, that I've written these books. Not everybody knows that, and so I think that's my challenge, my growth right now is to voice myself more, share more.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
When you did your trip, how did you do your trip?
I started in Los Angeles, and there was just an informal gathering, and we talked about the being peaceful concept in the books and stuff, and even the heart yoga that I started doing. And then I went up to Portland. So I started in the Southwest. I went to the Southwest, the Southwest. Then I went up to the Northwest, to Portland, and I did a presentation at the library about the books. And then I went across the nation to the Northeast, to New York. And that's where I did a heart yoga workshop. Yeah, and then I took a road trip down through West Virginia. There were friends of mine that said, you've got to stop at this place, you've got to present there, and it's a wonderful place called Mountain Quest, and it's where I think they have the receivers to hear the sounds from the universe. So for about a 30-mile radius, you're not allowed to have cell towers or internet or anything like that. So it's really Wi-Fi free.
Wow.
And so people who are allergic, if I'm allergic to those, have moved there. And other people too that are more into the natural healing, and they were very much into quantum physics. Very interesting couple that has a beautiful place, Mountain Quest Inn. It has an amazing library, with a huge library, and then they've written about 35 books themselves. And then, so there I gave both the book presentation and a short heart yoga session to ages, I think the youngest was about 12 and the oldest was like 82. So it was a great group. And then I went to Santa Fe. I went to Florida, but I didn't do any presentation in Florida. And then I was in Santa Fe and did a heart yoga session. And that was my Being Peaceful tour.
Wow, nice.
So I covered the country.
and then you have started somehow with speaking out yourself in the United States.
Yes.
Yeah, in some there are traces now.
Yes, there are little traces. I'm just, I guess, I'm very different than many people that actually do a real publicity tour thing. I just feel like I exist. I have what I have for people to find if that's what they want. And that's also why I have the Freedom Center, and that's where we are now, the Freedom Center. It's just a place where you can come and find the courage to face yourself, to grow, it's just like a home space. Or
Yeah, it's interesting with home. The home, It was a musician. She's from Czechoslovakia. It was that before. And she said, the home for me is where I am, and somehow the home will bring always our heart with us. So somehow that's a very big thing, to be in ourselves.
Yes.
And come to understand that.
Yeah, that's where our home is when we can just really be free to be in ourselves and be ourselves. That's home. And and that's the home I try to create here at the Freedom Center.
There's a possibility for people who come here to get the feeling of it. To come to their own home.
Home in your heart. Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you. So, shall we read a little more? Do you want to read?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. If you want, you can read, or I read.
Okay, I'll read this. As with the first book, Being, peace is an exploration, a journey that I decided to take to manifest peace in my own self, with an invitation for others to join me, as I now invited Thina. I have received wisdom and guidance from many mentors. Ultimately, at the core of each relationship is the universal truth speaking to me. My task is to perfect my listening so that I can hear its message. Then, not only do I want to hear, I want to become. Becoming means that I have to stop the cycles of all the dynamics that prevent me from being peaceful. And I want to stop here because this is a lot to talk about.
A lot.
Yeah. I mean, Thina and I both share wisdom and guidance from other mentors. We share videos that we get, and just books and such. But this thing about, you can learn from listening to others, but then ultimately it's about becoming it, not just.
That's true. Yes, but I really like this with listening that you have been written, because listening, it's so much to yourself inside, it's so much to another one, and it's so much somehow to get free of when another person speaks, really to be free in yourself, to let the thing be here in between and see what comes out. What do I want to pull? What does it say to me? And I can put out something, and at the same time listen to myself. And then at the same time listen to the other and see what, because I have learned this is really creation.
Yes. Yeah. The dynamic.
What comes out of it is because it's totally new.
Yeah.
If you're totally open, I'm totally open, we put it here, and then something happens.
Yeah. And that's what I also see from the two different points of view. Two different points of view can just be two different points of view. It can be conflict also, because it's like, well, I see it like this, no, I see it like that. But when you have the two different points of view, and you work them till you come to a higher perspective, is how I see, that's how we grow. And one of our mentors, Michaela Sheldon, she channels higher beings, and she answered someone about polarity, masculine, feminine, dark side, light side, whatever, good and bad, and explained that polarity occurs for growth to happen. And she gave the example that, well, like getting a flu, you get a bug, you get sick, you would consider that a negative or a bad thing, and then you have an immune system, and your immune system responds and counters that, it balances, it brings you back into balance. And after you've come through that illness, that flu or whatever, and with the response of your immune system, you're stronger.
Yeah, and I would call also this like the immune system learns from a new situation. So it's a learning taking place in the immune system. And the immune system is us in our body, but it's also our way of thinking, the brain, everything. So it's somehow peace. It's so interesting and listening when you can be calm, because then everything can be a learning situation.
Yeah. You're not resisting it.
No.
You're just kind of accepting, being open and vulnerable and open, and then that gives you the space to receive higher guidance.
Yes. If you want higher guidance, it's so interesting because I, in one way, see higher guidance, but I also have a feeling that we have so much inside of us, all of us. So it's also to be this calm and open. It retrieves. It
Retrieves our inner.
We have so much. All of us have so much. You know, that's why I love this. What Nassim Haramein has said, because now he did this. In physics, he wrote this equation, and every physicist that knows this all equation, they can then do it. And there were some Swiss persons that checked him out. He didn't know it and never had been that close. And what's he saying? One thing he's saying maybe is like this, not is, maybe is like this, is that the protons, in every proton, there is space for taking all information that the physicists have been doing, all physicists, all the information you can put in one proton.
Wow.
So that's in one proton. You know, we have many in every cell.
Yeah.
And we have many cells. So you know, if we listen, I like this with peace. When you listen, if all of us somehow has all the information in the universe, you can not double it, you can but many times make it potent. Then we have, so listening out, listening in, we can really come to new solutions and learn more and wonder more.
Yeah. And you know, that's behind all the books I read, you know, the Being and Peace. It's to stimulate your own inner wisdom. And the reason, and this book is actually a workbook where I have questions and I have things for you to fill out, and that's just to help stimulate that wisdom coming forth. But listening, like you said, listening inside, just listening, sitting in nature and listening, just really listening to one another. Wow, there's so many levels. I can tell you too, when I listen to like a talk, especially when pastors talk and stuff, it's an interesting phenomenon that happens to me. They talk about one thing and I can hear that one thing, but I'm getting, it feels like, you know, the chords of music. I'm getting a higher chord of this entirely different talk that my soul needs to hear at the time. And I think other people experience this sometimes, but I just like, I was kind of amazed, you know, I'm listening to this pastor talk and I know what he's talking about and the things, and then I've got this whole other thing that's coming. And sometimes it's not just with words, it's really a message directly to my heart. So I realized there's so many levels of listening that we may not even be aware of.
Yes, and there is so much music or noise or whatever in between. So it's really to come to different, you know, we are somehow, I don't know if we are the radio or we are the one who is
turning the dial. Right.
And we can, but I would like to ask you, when you get that information, and you are listening to someone, do you think it has something to do with each other, or is it what you need, right? But it's not something what
what they need. No, it's interesting.
Or what they are saying or giving out.
It's interesting because I've noticed when the person stops talking, this stops too. So it's almost like the person speaking is what is making the other thing come as well. And what it may be, I'm thinking right now, is how all of us hear things uniquely. Hear exactly what we need to hear. Yes. So it's like two people can watch a movie and then they come out and they say, oh gosh, this was about blah blah blah. And you're thinking, well, I thought it was about blah blah blah. But you get to hear what you need to hear. And that's something also in conversations. Sometimes when we have so much of our inner chatter coming at us, especially if you have traumas, right? There are words that'll trigger you. There are things that you won't even notice that trigger you. Maybe, a person's mannerism or the way they look at you or whatever. So you will hear things in your own way. And this has happened to me several times. And I've called it out a few times too, where I asked somebody when they say they got very upset by something I said, well, tell me what you heard me say. And they repeat it back, and I say, well, that would upset me too, because that's upsetting what you heard. I'm sorry it didn't come through, but this is what I'm trying to say. But what I've noticed is that oftentimes that is from a person's own, they've got their own chatter going on that's maybe trauma-based and defensive. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I think at the same time, everyone has it, more or less.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've had that too. I have it too.
Yeah,
I have it too. I mean, it's like, it happens like little things like, I bought milk today. And then I'm thinking like, well, I wasn't the one that ate the rest of the milk, drank the rest of the milk. It's not me, That's not what he was saying, right?
Yeah, and then in another, I don't know, not dimension, but on another point about this, that we all get it in a different way. The movie, for example, or something like that. That we really have to understand somehow, I believe, that all of us do have a slightly different perspective.
Yeah.
Because we are the whole, but we are also each another person. Unique, yeah. So it's also that, but then it's our history, our story, what mood we are in this day, this time.
Yeah.
When someone says, like you said about the milk.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it's also what we're yearning for, what we're yearning to understand, and that will also flavor what we receive,
Yes, and that's why it's so interesting this with listening and listening into ourselves, because then we understand what we are yearning for.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much.
So then you can somehow see your own, I don't know, what limits you put in how to listen to another person.
Yeah.
You see your own game, and we all have game.
Yes.
But it's nice, not always so nice feeling to see what our game is, but it is nice to understand, because then it's easier to understand what happens in the world or our relationships and so on.
Exactly. And once you can see that, I'm playing this game or this way of thing, you can also kind of step back and think, I can also choose this other game, this other way of looking at it too. And that's especially helpful if you feel like you've been looping in difficult situations. I just got into the same type of relationship that I got out of last time. or then you can, when you can start seeing your game, your perspective, your way of seeing things, and then give yourself the freedom to try it a different way. Try, instead of, especially when it gets into defensiveness, when you think, I don't want to be hurt, I don't want to be hurt in a relationship. Well, you just put that, a concept of being hurt as your game. My game is I get hurt. But if you can say, okay, I played that game. I want to experience real freedom in a relationship, freedom to express myself, and choose that as a game. You have the ability to do that. But we get stuck on, I have to win at this game that always brings me into problems. And I think we get into that later on in the book, so I don't want to get into that right now.
No, but I would like to add a thing here, because really to understand what playing is. Because we always say kids, they are playing.
Yeah.
But even we adults, as I see it, we are playing and have these social games, and we can play with ourselves and play with what you were talking about. So before we play it out at another person or try it out, we can play it on the inside, because when you change a habit, it becomes much feelings, and they are not always so pleasant. So if you can play it somehow, you can write about it, you can draw about it, or just do it on the inside. Just start to think that it's possible. And then at the same time, you have to give yourself a hug when you do the same. You see that you make the same habit, but give yourself a hug. I see it, I did it, and it's fun next time if I can take a deep breath before I do it, and do not have to do it. Sometimes you don't do it then, but then you do it 15 seconds later.
Yeah, you can
so
delay
you are
it.
trying, so you're trying, but you're really trying to be kind with yourself.
Well, that's how I see a true therapeutic relationship, is playing the relationship. Because a therapeutic relationship is where you can try out different behaviors, different ways of seeing it, and it's not going to impact your family relationships and everything, your real relationships. So, and that's supposed to really be the safe space. Actually, that is my background in psychotherapy, and I do coaching, is what I call it now. But it's getting the safe space to play a different way. And maybe at first to see which way you're playing, so that you get the opportunity to choose a different way. So that actually kind of brought up a little thing in the end of this, where it says, because I want to become, and becoming means that I have to stop the cycles of the dynamic that prevent me from being peaceful. And that's a tough one.
It is really a tough one. So you have to be kind with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to be okay with seeing things that you don't like about yourself.
Making mistakes.
Yeah.
That we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
And we have to come to terms with all makes mistakes.
Yes. And that's how we learn. That's how we learn. Do you want to read the next paragraph, and then we'll just finish this one chapter? What is being peaceful?
Peace actions are actions that counter the violent actions in the world. Both actions require your energy, but peace actions may seem more difficult to create than violent actions. Redirecting energy from old habits that contribute to violence into actions that bring greater love and respect is the method of being peaceful. And it's somehow that we have been talking about, but not in that direct terms.
Yeah, and I think that defensiveness, and this is something I learned from A Course in Miracles, which is a wonderful course to do, is that defensiveness is setting up the attack. Because attack is in your mind. It's just like saying, I don't want to get hurt. Defensiveness is saying, I don't want to be attacked.
And that's a very good thing in this. We don't know, I believe, for most of us, that we don't want to be hurt. We know it when we talk it out loud, but I think many of us have that underneath. I don't want to be hurt. So I'm afraid really to really be open in my heart. Because when we are open, we will be hurt. Not that someone is hurting us, but when you have to open up your way of thinking and everything, we have learned that that is to be hurt.
Yeah, it's like it's what you want to call it too. It's like this vulnerability, and well, even I think sometimes the hurt can be immediately responded with a healing. Like you open up and when you, like you said, you open up to be hurt, and maybe you say to someone, tell me what it is that I did that bothered you, you know, because I see you're upset with me. And then they tell you, and you're thinking, oh, that hurts. That hurts to feel this about myself. But if you can immediately bring the healing of like, and yes, I'm a loving being. That doesn't change anything. I'm no different in this moment when I feel my mistake and what I did, than in the moment when I feel so proud of myself for doing something wonderful. I'm the same person.
Yes.
I'm the same person.
Yes. And there, I think this with feeling hurt, this feeling, I don't know, you come from the United States and I'm from Sweden. But I believe here in Sweden, I don't know how it is there, that we have learned in the society that the feeling hurt is not a good feeling.
In Sweden.
Yeah, we have learned that.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of defensiveness that I notice here. I have to explain to this audience, we're an interesting combination. Tina's mother is American, and she was raised in Sweden. My mother is Swedish, and I was raised in America. So we have this complementary experience. So we both can see a little bit of the different cultures, but you really, you know, live as a Swede. And I've noticed that, you know, I've lived in New York, where New Yorkers are so open, and actually that's your background too, from Connecticut, New York, and they just tell things as it is, and it's like all the cards are on the table, and you know what you can deal with. But I feel like in Sweden, it's like you can't, you got to keep things looking good all the time. So you never know, and I know I was just thinking of this every time. Actually, I wiped down the counter. I think of the situation of this woman who was so upset with me, and I didn't even know. I mean, I found out through another person who said she was upset with me, and a month later than the incident happened, and he explained that she was upset because when I washed her dishes, I didn't wipe off the counter afterwards.
Ooh.
And I thought, well, she could have asked me to do it.
No, you can't. No. That's in Sweden. You are not going to go into another person's manner to direct them, but then at the same time, sometimes they think that you should know how to do. And that's what I was. And my thought at that time was like, well, I'm not going to insult her by starting to clean her house as if she. And so it could have been as well. Right. But the thing is that, these unspoken things, and that's the thing about communicating and listening, and that she felt attacked
that I did not wipe her counter down, it felt like an attack to her. And
Wow.
yeah, so that's what I mean about when I talked about, you know, things that are, you know, peace being is not creating violent actions. And she was creating a violent action to herself by interpreting my not wiping down her counter as an attack on her. And I'm totally oblivious of what's going on in her mind. And I didn't find that out until, yeah, like I said, like a month later. And at that point, it's a little late to go back and wipe her counter off for her.
Yeah, but you can talk about it, yes. But yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something to think.
But that's interesting because it's different cultures somehow you're talking about. And you know, in Sweden there are also many different cultures. So, and you know, subcultures, it's the United States. So you have the different things here as well that they could say or not. So it's not that. But that's so interesting because we are talking about peace.
Yeah.
And really to understand that there are so many different ways of communicate, really, with ourselves and with the one and so on. And really also to how do we continue the relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's to be peace in ourselves, and if our peace here, maybe we can drop, oh, did I hurt you last time in my way of being or what? It's so interesting because I really like what I read this introduction and so on, that it's peace is really how we think and think about another person, what we do, what we don't do, and everything. You know, so what you are asking with this book, it's really to, I believe, to stop yourself in life and really start to pay attention to your thoughts, your manners, everything, and maybe go behind and see first, what do I want to send out, what do I want to send to myself, and really maybe have that in your pocket or something to take up.
Yeah.
When something happens, wait, what is my wish in life somehow to be? I really like this.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I come to.
Good.
But this is interesting, really.
Yeah, because I'm thinking to know really what you want, and some people will say, oh, I want a good job, or I want to be seen as successful, but you have to go back into why, and it usually has to do with being experiencing love, joy, beauty, happiness. You know, that's really what we want, and that's where we have to really go into. Because I'm thinking of this woman too who disturbed her own peace by making it an issue that that the counter should be wiped for her to be okay, for her to feel peaceful. And she could have immediately healed herself and remedied herself at that moment by like, well, what do I really want? Do I want to be right? You know, like I'm the one who knows how to do things and this other person doesn't. Do I want to be at peace? You know, or do I want to create a conflict?
Or can I see what has been done and that's fine?
Yeah.
But it's not an easy issue. We are both being in relationships. It's not easy. Because when we are talking about peace, I think we have different levels when it's our friends, our husbands, or when our kids and so on.
Yeah.
That's interesting as well.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know, for me it has in life been easier to be peaceful with my friends than in my close home.
Yeah, and this particular one there was a relationship, there was a little bit, I figured it out later, a little bit of jealousy, you know, and so she wanted to have conflict with me, so it's very important to like really look at what do I want, what am I doing, what's behind it, and if there's a fear at all, which jealousy is a fear. It's like I'm not going to have love because love's going to go to this other person instead, and that's not how love works. I mean, love is just expands; it never retracts. Real love.
Yeah.
So so that's a good one to look at, and I think this is like we're right in the beginning of like looking at what is peace, how do you build peace. The subtitle of this is Finding Life's Harmony Through Relationships, Discovering Life's Harmony Through Relationships. That's how we're going to find our peace. It's when we really understand our relationships.
Yeah, and there we have one with ourselves as well.
Yeah.
Because what comes up in me is that in every situation, I believe, you could, but it's not easy, be peaceful whatever is around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like Viktor Frankl in Man's Life for Meaning.
Yes, but really, because that makes also, it's more an open atmosphere for the other to realize what that person did in the moment. If you are really open and not judging, because judging is not on the peace side.
No.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It's not. Judging is not. And I think like the example of the milk, right? And said, oh, I bought milk, and I'm judging myself because I may think that maybe I drank too much milk this time, or and then I get defensive because I want to not be the one who drank too much milk. You know, so that's why you react. Otherwise, a normal reaction would be, thank you. Thank you. Simple. Thank you. I don't know if we should take one more paragraph. We only have a little bit here. What are violent actions? Well, any action that violates the respect and integrity of another being is a violent action. A violent action can be physical, verbal, mental, or emotional. So I don't know if we want to say anything about that, about violating respect and integrity of another being. It's when we, you know, if we can see others or everything as coming from the one source, pure love, then it's almost like, you know, if you know a painting comes from this famous artist, Van Gogh, you have this awe and respect for it, right? But if it's the same painting, but somebody says, my neighbor did it, right? You think, that's junk, right?
Yeah, it's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. So this is a very big topic, because it's really that every person, when you feel peace, are totally in freedom somehow, and that's, and it's not that easy when we live in society, and the society says that you are going to think like this and this, and maybe or in your sub-society, but it's really what you say, you know, to honor everything you do, to honor everything every other person does. But it's not that easy always for me, from where I come from, because it was not like that.
Yeah, we're so used to having hierarchies. There are certain people that have higher positions, authorities, or idols, but to really be able to see everyone as an artwork of this most amazing artist, this divine source, this God that we revere, that each person is that.
Yeah, and then I would like to add, because really how we function as a human being, our cells and everything, all that happens every second, that so many things, chemistry and everything, it is really like an art going on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is. So, if you see someone doing it, and we can see the artists, many of them, they have not been seen before they die.
Right, yeah.
and I wonder if this is a communication also, that in society somehow maybe it easy wakes up awe. What's it?
Awe.
Yeah, awe. Yeah, and that it's somehow, you were talking about this feeling pain and the healing, but that society are not that quick.
No.
So it somehow it comes to the pain, and when the person have died, then somehow it doesn't feel that painful, or then you put them up there above you.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It is. It's interesting how society likes to regurgitate pain. You throw it up, you eat it again. You throw it up, you eat it again. And that's also one reason, like when I don't like to do psychotherapy based on, let's just look at your trauma, let's figure your trauma out. I like to look at your joy. What is your joy? And then, okay, if your trauma is in the way of your joy, then we'll go through the trauma to your joy. But that's interesting too. How it's like we're not free until we die. That's another lie that we've been told somewhere.
Yeah, and that there is a death somehow.
Yeah, right.
As well.
Yes, but a lot. Are we living the death now until we go to life?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just heard the author of the Sophia Code. It's a wonderful book. Her interview, and she said, people aren't really afraid of dying. They're afraid of living.
Yeah, that's true. That's totally true.
Yeah.
And people are afraid of being strong.
Yeah.
But when we are standing in we feel really strong, and then we shine out, and everybody can be strong at the same time.
Yeah. Yes. It doesn't mean that just because one person's strong, everybody else has to be weak. And that was in my other book too. It's just because something is right, something is true, doesn't mean that the other things are wrong. Right. So, and that's something for us to think about today when we have very, very strong opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it right to wear a mask? Is it wrong to wear a mask? It all depends on the situation and the moment and the person.
Yeah, the person's intention, and maybe to play with it. You're not stuck when you are playing with it.
Yeah. Right.
You have the freedom when you're playing with it. And there was someone saying, you gave me this from Magenta Pixie, and she said, but you can wear, if you want, a pink mask or a wool mask or whatever, then you make it your own.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing in life, to make it your own, and then stand for your own, what you have done, but also be open for someone asking and so on, and maybe you will change it, but make everything your own.
Yeah. Make it meaningful to you.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know if we want to go through the rest. I can read. Or you want to read that because the only control?
Yeah, I can try. My English is not that good, but I hope you understand. Because the only control a person has is over his or her own thoughts and actions, the focus of this book is about how one person can create thoughts, words and actions of peace. the more people who make this individual effort, the larger the realm of peace can become. The thoughts, words, and actions of peace are not necessarily equivalent to pacifism. They are consciously active decisions. From the best of my understanding, with all the knowledge that I have now, I choose to think, speak, and act respectfully. Bringing peace does not necessarily mean being liked either. Martin Luther King Jr., as a great peacemaker, was strongly disliked by many. And that is so important, that really to stand in your own is this, that we all have different views of things.
Yeah.
And we have to be true with ourselves.
Yes. Yes. And that goes
Self.
into judgment too. Yeah. It for us, what we know is right for myself is important for you to know for yourself. But then if you're going to say, judge someone else for not finding that right for themselves, then that's when you bring the discord and it's opposite of the peace. So, but I think that it's, Martin Luther King Jr. Was a pastor, a really man of God. He really spoke about sovereignty, divine sovereignty. And I know the teen group that I worked with, they took his I Have a Dream speech, they used that as one of their foundations for the work that they did, is to judge a person by the content of their character. Not by anything else, but the content of their character. And that also made them reflect upon the character that I want to be. And so it was wonderful. But he went up against a status quo at the time. He was a peaceful protester, and I think he's someone to still admire and watch. I'm going to continue so we can get through with this because it's going on. Being nice is not equivalent to being a peacemaker. When a mother squeezes her toddler's jaw and pulls him away from the child he's biting, does the toddler feel his mother's being nice to him? And when a parent will not give the teen girl permission to go to a dance club, does the girl think her parent is nice? And was Jesus being nice when he spoke to Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan"? Did Peter feel that Jesus was being nice to him? Things happen in the world that require not so nice responses in order to move towards peace and goodness. So that's, yeah. Well, I'll continue. I'll finish this up. Therefore, being a maker of peace is not always a good feeling. A maker of peace does not necessarily look special or become popular. Why would a person choose to be a peacemaker? Well, the contrary contributes to an environment that ultimately makes us miserably fearful. The choice is still ours to make. Each one of us can choose to be makers of peace or contributors to violence. There's no in-between. We may make choices unconsciously, and we may make choices consciously. You, as the reader, make your choice too. This book is a journey to discover how to be a peacemaker.
Yeah. And it's a tough thing, and I believe it is like it is. It is so that you have written. Why I say it's tough, it's really to really realize that if I am peaceful with myself and the ones that I meet, then somehow I can have the feeling inside of myself that others are peaceful as well. You say that in a different way there, but this with not to be afraid or a violent world, or I don't know how. But it's so interesting what we self give out somehow it's somehow how we think the world is as well.
We see the world as a reflection of ourselves.
Yeah, and that's very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. It's one of my mentors in life. She said that, and then if you really think of that if I'm not stealing anything, then I have the thought that others are not stealing either.
Right.
You know what atmosphere that would give.
Yeah.
And if someone sees something, then I hope that person have better use than me for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really big things, but it's really for a peaceful world.
Yeah.
I like it very much. Your book, yeah.
And you know, and I was really called. Something in me said, "Oh, I need to do my book now." And there are exercises in it, and I started doing some of the exercises because I think right now we are in a place in the world where it's like a blank slate, where we can build what we want to build. And I was thinking, okay, how many times have people said, "I stop the world, I want to get off," or "I'm just so stressed, I need things to change," or whatever it is, and the world stopped now. So it's like we're beginning this blank canvas. And then when people say, "I want things to get back to normal," I'm thinking, do you really want to paint the same old picture on this new blank canvas? Why don't we have this time to really, think about, really listen inward to what, if I was creating the world, what would I want in this world? And I just spoke about that in another video I did earlier today. And I said, really give yourself the freedom. I mean, if you listen inside and you think, "Oh, I want to have a unicorn farm," let it be, let it be. Don't judge yourself. Don't say it can't be done or whatever. But what you can do is you can ask, well, why do I want to have a unicorn farm? Well, because I think that would be fun, I like the excitement and the joy and the color and the beauty. Then when you know that that's what you want, excitement, joy, color, and beauty, it can be manifested in a different way than a unicorn farm. But you might want to call it your unicorn farm then, who knows? But that we need to now see about a peace world. We've always talked about peace, but done the opposite. So now we have to understand, how do we build this peace world? And that's a little bit what this book does. There's 13 chapters and looking at different aspects of peace. So we just began, and we'd love to have comments, and then we can, if you have questions too, we can start discussing that. I'm planning to do this every Wednesday night around this time, around 7 o'clock, 7:15 Central European time, but it may be, which is in New York, 1 or 1:15 in the afternoon, and in California then you would back it up to it be like 10 or 10:15 in the morning. So, and join us in the live, or catch us up on the replay. And thank you, Thina, so much.
Yeah,
This was
thank
fun.
you. Thank you, and thank you.
Yes.